And to have someone like Kelly Olynyk, who's a smart player, who's a vet, who knows where to get his guys in those spots, it's good. Now the question is, can they keep him?
Joining me right now on the show to talk all things NBA and Houston Rockets, Kelly Iko, the Athletic. Kelly, thanks for being here, buddy.
What's going on? How's everybody doing? Hope y'all well. It's getting kind of hot out here. Get your air conditioners right. Get your coolers right. It's the summertime, people.
Speaking of hot, not that they're super hot, but Dallas Mavericks probably shouldn't have lost last night. I'm sure you watched the game, and your thoughts on what got into the Rockets last night?
Well, that was actually the first game all year that Stephen Silas was able to have a lineup of John Wall, Kevin Porter Jr., Jayshawn Tate, Kelly Olynyk, and Christian Wood. They played 25 minutes together. They had a net rating of plus 40. And I think that game was arguably one of the best they've played all season in terms of top to bottom effort, attention to detail, a complete coaching, job well done. And, obviously the Mavericks shot terribly from three. Luka won't shoot 1 for 9 every night. But I think the Rockets came out hungrier. They came out more aggressive. And you could tell that they actually really wanted that game.
The interesting thing is I saw a quote from Christian Wood who said it was nice to have my point guard back. Right. He said it made the offense easier. And I think you find that with a veteran point guard like John Wall. Do you read between the lines and what that means about Kevin Porter Jr. and where he's at and where he fits into this offense? Or is he never – because I know he was down in the G League working on trying to run the offense as a point guard. Is there anything to read into that at all?
Well, it's more so along the lines of Kevin Porter Jr. is a project in terms of they want to develop him into that point guard. John Wall's still there, and he's still going to be the alpha male. He's still the team leader and the floor general. So, yes, while Kevin Porter Jr. is very talented and why they expect him to develop into that role of becoming a full-time playmaker, it's nice to have John Wall on the floor, someone that can guide the show, who Kevin can lean on and who can set the offense up. You see why he's so important last night. Just getting to the scenes of the defense, setting Christian Wood up, setting Kelly Olynyk up, getting guys going, getting himself going as well. He had 31 points. But anytime John can play like that and has those aggressive games, the Rockets can always do well because, there are two sides to John Wall. Obviously, there's the aggressive John Wall, and then there's the one that's taking the contested mid-range shots to kind of slowing the offense down a bit. But last night was a good John Wall. And, the more healthy they can have him on the floor, the better.
I'm man enough to admit when I'm wrong. And I'm not saying that it's a huge sample size. But when the Rockets traded Victor Oladipo to the Miami Heat and got Avery Bradley and Kelly Olynyk back, plus a pick swap, and I got to admit, I was like, really? That's the best you could do? That net for the James Harden deal? That's it? And not that Avery Bradley has been great, but Kelly Olynyk has been a huge bright spot and a big surprise. I saw somebody tweet about it like Kelly Olynyk is what Victor Oladipo was supposed to be. I found that to be an interesting tweet. But in general, I think he has surprised a lot of Rockets fans and people around the NBA. Are you surprised at what you're seeing from him?
Yeah, I am. Obviously, if you know Kelly Olynyk, you know where he's coming from. Playing in Boston, playing in Miami, two teams that specialize in ball movement, player movement. Obviously being a stretch big, but also able to put the ball on the floor, finishing the post a little bit. Him being in Houston, it's clear to see that he's needed there. Just as someone who can space the floor, give John another shooter, and the most important thing, can he play with Christian Wood? You saw last night he had 2 back-to-back assists to Christian in the opposite corners, being able to attack from the post and be that kind of post playmaker that they haven't had. Obviously, after Eric Gordon and Dan House were injured, the Rockets kind of needed extra playmaking help. And to have someone like Kelly Olynyk, who's a smart player, who's a vet, who knows where to get his guys in those spots, it's good. Now, the question is, can they keep him? Because he's currently on a $12.5 million expiring contract, and he'll be a free agent in the summer. What figure will he command in the open market? And the way he's playing right now, his value is going up. So there was a previous thought that him coming in, if he didn't play as well, he wouldn't get as near of a salary as the $12.5 million that he is currently on. But the way he's playing now to end the season, I could very well see him getting anywhere from $10 to $13 million a year.
Okay, so that being said, do you think Kelly Olynyk will be a Rocket when you and I talk this time next year?
I think so. I think it depends on where the organization is in terms of do they see that fit as a viable one going forward. Obviously, if if they come with the draft and free agency and things go out differently, that's also a possibility. But I think Olynyk right now, he's someone that they should be looking to keep on to, if they can get it to a reasonable price.
Also, one of the transactions that we saw recently, Rockets released Ben McLemore, who then went and signed with the Los Angeles Lakers. You had talked about Ben McLemore as a name that might actually be traded leading up to the trade deadline. Are you surprised how this ended with Ben McLemore and the Houston Rockets?
Kind of. Obviously, there was interest from teams, but the sense that I got that teams were, more inclined to just wait and see what the Rockets would do because they were obviously going to waive him, after the deadline because, the way that their team is going right now, him and Ben and the Rockets were on different pages in terms of, what they want. So, them kind of giving him the choice to choose where he wants to play and stuff like that. I see why they did it, but I'm also surprised that teams didn't come in at the deadline. I thought that he could have been had for a second round pick. A team like Philly, a team like Milwaukee could have come in and offered a pick, but the Lakers got their man, so good for him.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I find it interesting that I don't know who's at fault here. Was it the Rockets? Was it the rest of the league? And just played the waiting game and ended up losing out to the Lakers. But you feel like the Rockets should have gotten something for him, but instead they end up with nothing and he walks and now he's going to be playing for a title. So good for him. But I mean, this is the second time now that either you've mentioned it or it's been discussed publicly where the Rockets were like, they did it with Cousins as well, where they were like, we'll buy you out. We'll let you go wherever you want. We're going to try. They're being amicable with McLemore, with DeMarcus Cousins. And even with some of the guys that they've traded, trying to get Harden to a contender they wants to play with, right? Getting Victor Oladipo to Miami, even when they got roasted for the deal. Is this team being too nice? Because Daryl Morey doesn't do any of this. Daryl Morey's like, sorry, homie, you're on your own. Or, no, fam, you're going to Sacramento because that's the best deal. James, deal with it. What's going on with the Rockets? Are they too nice right now?
I mean, it's certainly an interesting strategy. I think for Houston, if you look at it from the point of, having guys on the roster that want to be with the team and, if things don't work out, you want to help them get to where they want to go. It kind of sends a message to other players who aren't on the team currently, but can see that, that this team is someone that can help me. If some comes down the line and I want to move separate ways, it's a good partnership. So I think it's certainly it's an approach to take if you are a team like the Rockets in transition and you want to attract guys in free agency, in trades. You want to get back to where you were before. You're going to have to sell yourself a bit. And, them allowing Ben to go join a contender, PJ go join a contender, James, it kind of sends that message that, look, this is a team that does right, that they do right by their players as long as they do right by them.
Well, and that's a great point, Kelly, because you didn't get that with Daryl Morey. Everybody knew you were just an asset to Daryl Morey. Unless your name was James Harden, Daryl didn't care about you. You were a name on a sheet or a number, and he was going to do whatever it took to get the Rockets. That was the reputation that this team had. That was the reputation that he had. So you make a great point that you feel like the Rockets are almost overcorrecting to overcome that look, this isn't the Daryl Morey-led Rockets anymore. We care about you as players, and we're going to do right by you. So that's a great point. Is that what you think is going on? They're trying to overcome that stigma of being a bad organization under Daryl in that regard and how they treated players?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Anytime you have a new GM, a new regime, you kind of want to set the tone and reset the culture. And I think what they're trying to do right now going forward is kind of be that team that can attract guys to come to want to play in Houston. Obviously, they should have a lot of cap space in the next 2-3 years. They have a draft coming up, a lot of draft capital under their belt. There's some potential to kind of rebuild this thing from the ground up. And the pieces that they already have in place, Christian Wood, Jayshawn Tate, KJ Martin, and Kevin Porter Jr., you have the pieces there to kind of build around, assuming you get a couple of things here and there to fill in the gaps.
Okay, the names you just mentioned, let's exclude Christian Wood because I think he's certainly untouchable at this point from the Rockets. As we know, I think towards the trade deadline, he was literally the only name that was off limits, right? If you reached out about him, they weren't listening or talking, but everybody else they would have talked to you about. Of the names that you mentioned, Kevin Porter Jr., KJ Martin, and Jayshawn Tate, which one of those three would most likely be moved?
Okay.
You can't hear me?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, there you go.
I couldn't hear you.
No, it's okay. Of the three names, so we know Christian Wood is untouchable, right? We know that. That was made apparent at the trade deadline. But of the three young names you mentioned, which name might we expect to not be a Rocket going forward between Jayshawn Tate, Kevin Porter Jr., and Kenyon Martin Jr.?
Well, if you were going to go of those three names, I would have to go Kenyon Martin Jr. because, Kevin Porter Jr. is obviously going to be the team's future point guard. And Tate is such, if he's not first team all rookie, there's going to be a real problem in Houston. But of those three names, I think you would have to pick KJ as kind of the odd man out in terms of, tiers. But he is still a good player. He's a good player. Everyone knows the dunks that he gets up and crazy for. He still has a ways to go in terms of offensive development. Getting the confident shot, putting the ball on the ground and creating for others. But as a young player, that's what you want to see. You want to see the energy. You want to see the athleticism. You want to see the effort, and he has all of those. So I think they're in a good spot in terms of having a good young crop of talent.
No doubt. Chris Davis said, I like that I think the Rockets are better with closing games with two shooting bigs than just Christian Wood by himself. Is that the direction we think that they're headed, or is that just is that a Steven Silas thing? I mean, we saw how he constructed an offense around Porzingis and Luka Doncic in Dallas. Can we expect that to be a thing, which would be completely different than what the Rockets were in the past? Is this going to be a too big spread the floor kind of offense? What do you think about that?
I mean, for now, you kind of have to see it that way. With Kelly Olynyk and Christian Wood under center, you have two guys that can give you different options. Steven Silas wants to be diverse. He wants to be versatile and dangerous. And with those guys, they can either roll to the rim, they can space the floor, or they can create for others. So I think it's been a while since we've seen that, two stretch big model in the NBA, but I think they're trying to bring it back.
Last question before I let you go. I talked a little bit about this on the show earlier, but there is some discussions about Kawhi Leonard and where he's going to end up. And I saw an article that talked about he might be in Miami. And then you see most people are saying he's probably going to re-sign with the Clippers. What are your thoughts? What are you hearing? Where can we expect Kawhi Leonard to be? I guess in the twilight of his career is what we're approaching.
Yeah, so I think there was an article on our site by Sam Amick and John Hollinger saying that he's expected to resign with the Clippers, barring any unforeseen, change of heart. And I think it's a good spot for him. Obviously, the last season's failures is going to, be pretty big on their minds. But he's still a champion. He's still somebody who can change the game on a dime. And anytime you have a franchise player like that, you want to hold on to him. And he's in a good spot. He's playing at home. He's playing with Paul George. He's playing with, Ty Lue, Pat Bev, those guys. And I think this is going to be the best year for them to kind of prove those wrongs. Although, still got to go through the Lakers, got to go through Denver, but I think they're in a good spot as anyone.
There you go. That is Kelly Iko of The Athletic. Kelly, how can the people follow you on social media?
Kelly Iko NBA. That's KELLYIKO NBA on Twitter and Instagram. And subscribe to The Athletic.
And subscribe to The Athletic. I'll put the link in the show. Send me a new one because the last one was to one article. Do you have like a better link that's just send me that link. We'll include it in this. And when I chop this up for the YouTubes. Hey, Kelly, I appreciate you, buddy, as always. Good insight.
Thank you.
That's it. That is Kelly Iko of The Athletic talking NBA basketball right here on Barry on Deck as he does every single week and Thursdays. Daddy's making a YouTube video.